I'd like to call to order the April, 27th, 2023 Shade Tree Commission meeting. And if we could have roll call, please, Heather.
Ms. Adams?
Here.
Mr. Vanicolo?
Here.
Ms. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Wright?
Here.
Mr. Tomasco?
Here.
Everyone is present.
All right. Could we pause for a moment of silence and then we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, if we could stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda for today?
Sounds good.
All right, second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. All right, so do we have any additions to the agenda or comments from the public? Oh, okay. All right. All right, moving on to the minutes. Can I have a motion, or did everybody review the minutes from last meeting from March 23rd? And are there any comments or concerns? If not, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from March 23rd?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Unanimously passes. All right, we don't have any permits to approve this week or this month rather. And there are two items under land development review, but both of those, both the Veterans Memorial Hall at Marville and the Stoney Knoll have requested an extension, so there's no action to take, correct? Okay.
That means there's.
Right. And then regarding Stoney Knoll, I had provided, I CC'd everyone on the comment letter that we provided to the applicant. It was mainly a summary of the meeting that John and I participated in with the applicant. Does anybody have any questions or comments or about what we sent? Or I sent, put together? Won't speak for you guys. Anything? Nothing? Okay. All righty. Okay. All righty then. Moving on to future land development review. I believe we're still waiting on Garrett, Williamson and Sawmill. So there's no action tonight either on that. All righty. Okay, moving on then to new business. We have a land development checklist that was developed by the township. And I also provided a checklist based on the requirements under section 158-10, as well as chapter 104. Because both of those tie in together, and there are some things under chapter 104 that supersedes and are more restrictive. Therefore, those requirements take precedent over ours. And I tried to point that out in the checklist here, but I thought this would be easy because when I was reviewing Stoney Knoll, I kept flipping back in the ordinances and tried to figure out, what they were supposed to provide. And And I found this to be helpful, so I wanted to share that with you all to see if maybe you felt the same. And I did not. Can you send that to me again? Because I went all the way back to 2021. Yeah, this one is really kind of minimal. And yes, I agree. There's a lot more that needs to be added to it. And also with respect to heritage trees, it's my understanding that being qualified as a heritage tree that's protected by us has to be designated as a heritage tree? Or is it automatic that a tree over 36? So my reading of the ordinance says that it has to be one that's on our, like that we designate as a heritage tree.
And that's what I put in my first.
Okay.
Every tree. Yeah. And
Okay, all right,
that way, well, we don't know about.
right.
Well, I thought we discussed that before and they said it doesn't matter. I thought it automatically is if it's in the ordinance.
Not the way
It's not the way it's written.
Here again, I know Mr. Stewart is working. Kind of stuff. Do think that may be a focal point. I did reach out to him and request the meeting. I did send an email to him, seeing if we could organize some dates. Don't know that I got anything back. I do think it would be wise to put a list of things, review that ordinance,
Mhm.
highlight the areas so we can focus on that.
But Rob, we have been treating it like every tree is a heritage as they come in.
Well, what
Now,
do they do under land development?
so if somebody comes in, just say somebody removes a tree, that's a heritage. It's not designated by us, really, they can get off the hook.
Right.
But nobody is reading the ordinance, so we're treating everything as a heritage tree.
But how's it under land development when you do it?
So under 104, it's not as specific. So 104 has requirements in it too, but it has a replacement. It has a replacement for trees over a certain DBH. But I think actually ours is a little more restrictive, so we've been, right,
Has to match that every time. Over. Element, first of all, it cannot be removed within a time. And currently it's passed during a land development. Because we're having right away, we have an option. At John, Stoney to. For those. So it's in the, and of course, the engineers are more in tune with the hurdle to overcome. It's private individual trees that John mentioned probably get by the ordinance.
So like when we require them to become trees. That captures that. I like. IT didn't have every tree, they had that hedgerow there. One of those is a heritage.
And then talk a little, I don't know, talk a little bit about Stoney Knoll. But I know in some communication I've had with a here for the app, there is the possibility of more information coming in us in regard to the trees that may be removed or affected. If you recall, there was a pipe system, drained a basin, qualified as basin 3,
mhm,
that basically drained in Echo Valley.
right,
We've had some communication about that, and maybe for information provided on the landscaping plan recognized for trees. Because of that type of, also there's the potential for application because of the service. So we're still kind of discussing that. I know we're looking at that.
Well, with respect to that, so they acknowledged that they were going to open trench was the construction method. If they chose a different method to install those pipe and do a horizontal directional drill, then they would essentially avoid those impacts to those trees and limit the disturbance on the steep slope, because disrupting that steep slope, I would imagine through that open trench would just invite more erosion down that slope. So could we not, I mean, that's what we put in, at least in my comment, that I'd like to see them consider an alternative construction method to avoid those impacts. I don't know what latitude the planning board or if the township can require that, but that would be my recommendation, because my concern too, if they went with the open trench, is that it's not only the direct impacts to those trees that were in that footprint, but also adjacent, because the root systems are going to be disturbed. And while we might not see trees dying immediately, there could be indirect effects with those trees being affected later in time. And that's what I'm concerned about. So, but if they chose directional drilling, then that could all be avoided.
Sure. I don't think my being a require one method be used over another method. Allow them to make those decisions, have to react to it as they propose. But mitigating that. And they obviously have to mitigate any damage they occur.
Mhm.
And I think it's the very sure. Thank you.
Okay.
That comes down to very backwards.
Sure. Yeah, and so the other place would be on lot 18, where those additional impacts to those trees on lot 18 could equally be avoided by using that method as well.
Yeah, there was some conversation about that as well. Well, there's that pipe system.
Yeah.
And, you know, we kind of talked about how our ordinance speaks to repairing buffer
Yes.
zones, and their plan, the more recent plan that they specifically highlighted that area. I don't know that they actual documentation that was asked for by the EA. But I think we're getting closer to that information. And they reacted to that. They basically put it out in the ordinance that I had made comment that the riparian buffer zone was now identified and that the pipe system was shown within that bound. Mr. Gage pointed out to a section of our ordinance that kind of allows that. So here again, you know, we do defer mainly to the county conservation. And our riparian buffer requirements are not as strong as they should be. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is I know the board Monday night gave direction for myself to.
Okay,
And we
that's
have
great.
pulled some information.
So do you have a timeline on when those aspects of the ordinance may be beefed up?
I think the board's looking for it very.
Oh, that's really encouraging.
I'll
Okay.
say that. I think we thought that maybe it would be ready for one of these meetings, but it was not. So, I mean, that's how quick.
Wow. Okay,
We're looking,
all
we're
right,
looking for it to be done very.
I see.
If we can just.
Yes, sure. Come on, George. Thank you for that. Don, thank you. Sorry about that, George.
No, not at all. I'm actually just here from the standpoint of the Arbor Day tree planting to answer any questions you may have and
Yes.
see if there's any, last minute details you want addressed.
We do. So it looks like it's gonna rain. I know. It looks like it's gonna rain.
It is gonna rain on, yeah.
Okay. So is it possible to have a rain date and defer to the following weekend? The only rub is that I won't be here.
So the following weekend is full
Right.
of activity. So I don't know that we would be able to support it the following Saturday.
Okay.
And
So,
the following Sunday, there is a rain garden maintenance event going on. So again, that'll,
okay,
I think some of your volunteers will be pulled.
absolutely.
Free tomorrow?
It was 10
For
to
Saturday,
1,
10 to 1.
and then
yeah.
we're gonna be there at 9 if it's not pouring. So I don't mind working in the rain. Yeah, we're not gonna get volunteers. I mean, we can do it. I know. I mean, that's up to y'all.
Yeah, it
Saturday?
on Saturday, it is going to rain all day until the evening. Even though it may be lighter at certain times, it's going to be raining all day.
It's great weather to plant. You're gonna throw our volunteers.
Right.
Special event.
And that's part of what the event is to do, is to educate about Arbor Day and trees, so. Just looking at it. All of them.
Yeah, there's 10 that are bare root.
So,
Now, if we wind up going too long and not being able to have the event, we'll probably just put them a little more permanently in the tree nursery and then use them later after they're done leafing out.
all right, what about you? So. I'm sort of on the fence here. A part of me feels like I don't mind working in the rain. I mean, I think it makes the ground nice and soft and easier to dig.
But we also have this, this is also something that we're required to do.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna have to do something, even if it's smaller group.
Plant 2 or 3 tomorrow that is dedicated on Saturday at least. Or that is.
For Arbor Day? Yeah, but we have all the.
Yeah, no, we could certainly do that. Yeah, because we're already scheduled to be digging all the holes tomorrow. But
Do you guys just want to go? All right, let's see.
based on what you give direction on tonight, we're going to dig the holes for the event tomorrow so that they'll be ready for Saturday. But if you tell me it's now half an event, then I'm going to dig the half that I think we would do. If you say we're going to postpone it, then I'm going to maybe just plant a few or something like that. I'm going to take direction from you. We're ready to go. We could actually operate in the rain. It's what we do, but you're not going to have your volunteers. Yeah.
Well, at least we have those 3 planted. That was going more than 3. Back to another evening. At least you have 3 in the ground. The event's canceled. We'll dedicate them. 3 trees. Which is of our due diligence.
That's the end of it. Well, at that point, we might as well plant all 10 of them. Once the holes are dug, it takes about an.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do them all myself.
So you do it for the other thing. It doesn't help us.
But we could fill in, I mean, I could.
All right.
George, how big are the trees? How big are they?
So there's 10 bare root that are probably the 8-foot ones. And then there's a number of potted ones.
So they're 1.5 caliber? Probably,
If
at the most, the 8 foot. Inch and a half.
Inch. You're gonna dig 10 holes? Or no?
Yeah, we use a backhoe or an auger. Yeah.
Personally, I think we can bang out those 10 trees and let's just get these bare roots in. And then there's more trees in the nursery, there's not a shortage of places and where we need to plant trees. So we can do another day where it's more of, and maybe we can maybe collaborate a little bit and think more about the educational aspect of it, but at least we're getting the trees in, we're meeting our accreditation, and then let's figure out how we could do some more outreach and maybe at another event or something. I don't
Be out
know.
there in the rain.
We'll try to deliver.
Yeah, exactly. Let's
So-
just, let's
so it'll
just
be
put
on.
them in. Let's just do it.
On there, yeah.
We're there, rain or shine.
Good.
We don't melt.
Not made of sugar.
George, before I forget it, that get off the subject. I sent Steve Bradley the application for the Tree City USA for the update. Did you get that?
I did not.
I sent to Steve Bradley, he's like, I didn't fill it out the first time, and it was like, his name was all over the application, but I was just a contact. So I saw this stuff about the trees that were planted, this and that, and so I gave it back to him, and I thought he was gonna give it to you. You never got it?
I did not get it from him. That doesn't mean that he didn't facilitate it. Maybe
He might have
directly.
sent it in, known what it was, and filled it out and sent it in, but. you
Yeah,
never saw it.
I don't, and I would not necessarily have had to see it.
Cause I didn't hear anything else about it. All right.
Yeah, but I was not part of that.
I just didn't want to drop the ball on it, that it came to my email that it needed updated or something. I'm like, I didn't fill it out the first time. I'm just a contact information.
Okay,
Okay, so.
rain or
Saturday.
shine.
Won't be Saturday.
10 o'clock, right?
9 o'clock we'll
9
be
o'clock
there.
for us.
We'll be there to get set up and stuff like that. And then, so do we want to do the tent? Well, can we get the tent and? a
Yeah,
table?
I'll have a tent there just to,
Okay,
just
just
to
so we
play it
can
safe.
get out of the rain.
yeah, I don't know how many people will fit under it, but yeah, at least the table will be dry.
Okay, there we go. All right, that sounds great.
What's that?
This is Saturday.
This Saturday, 9 o'clock for us to be there. The event starts at 10. And then
Goshen Road Trip.
Goshen Trail at the parking lot. Right,
Clock, rain or shine. Doubles in one. Ring gear on.
rain gear.
I got you.
Don't forget your gloves and water. Bring gloves, water. If you want snacks, bring your own stuff. Sunscreen.
Take repellent.
They get set it, actively all around the tree.
All right. Thank you, George. Do we need to talk about the fall planting, though? Do we want to go ahead and talk about that? Cindy, did you want to chat and then we can, while George is here, so then he can go?
Great. I'm hoping that, you guys can vote tonight, even though it didn't say discussion and action, to support the fall tree planting, because there's been a lot of preliminary dialogue about this, but we need to start moving. Cindy Mahalo, 87 Hunters Run, EAC Vice Chair and Shade Tree Commission Liaison. So I had given each of you a little card from the Keystone 10 million tree initiative of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and the Arbor Day Foundation, which are leading an initiative to plant 10,000 trees in Pennsylvania. No, a million. 10 million, sorry, 10 million trees in Pennsylvania by 2025. And they're concentrating on a higher priority area in central Pennsylvania, which is the watershed that drains to the Chesapeake Bay. They have not been achieving their water quality goals, and they're really intensifying efforts up in Pennsylvania. So while they're concentrating on central Pennsylvania through this program, they also are very generous with trees and supplies in the rest of the state. And last fall, George registered the township as a partner, an official partner with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and we liaisoned through the Upper Providence EAC and Ridley Creek Park to combine our orders to get, there were hundreds and hundreds of trees. And one of the reasons we did this was that the way they structure their order is like it's a minimum of 20 trees per species. So if you only want 150 trees, that's kind of like not very many different species. So the theory was that if we bunch our orders, we can get more diversity in the tree species. I actually was at the Earth Day Festival at the Upper Main Line Y on Saturday, and there were representatives from the Keystone 10 Million Tree Partnership there. And I explained that we did a planting at Brookside Park last fall and asked for the sign, so they gave me the sign. So George is going to mount it at Brookside Park. And it was also fortuitous because I had been trying to get the contact person at Chesapeake Bay Foundation, at the Keystone 10 Million, because my contact from last year had left. So I got the name of this year's contact, spoke with him this afternoon, and he confirmed that the fall planting will go on. They do have funding. It'll be almost the exact same species as last year. I explained to him what we wanted to do, that we were a partner, that we had done this on a small scale before. We wanted to do it bigger this year, concentrating on larger landowners such as HOA, houses of worship, schools, Garrett, Williamson, whatever. He said that, and that we would be like the coordinating agency and then collecting orders and dispersing them. And he said that sounded great. And that there was another township, he gave me the name of, that had done a similar thing, that we could model our program after theirs. And I said that we also were hoping to target certain streets throughout the township that were in problematic areas for stormwater, that were in the MS4. He showed me his map. I've got the map. So it would be kind of a combination of, would be concentrating on mostly private landowners, because his nursery's full, the parks are getting full. We've got our hands full maintaining these trees. So the time is to focus on private landowners. So if you all approve that yes, because you're the guys that have to give it the blessing, then I think what could be the next step is to put together a little packet of information to simplify this and present to houses of worship, schools, HOAs, to explain, this is what you get, this is what you have to do, this is what would be available. We need your order by the beginning of July, because we need people's orders by, I would say, the end of June, so that, yes, because we have to combine our order and submit it to them in July. And they're still focused on the spring planting, but I said, listen, if you're trying to approach houses of worship, HOAs, they have committees. They only meet once a month. They have to think about this. They have to talk about this. You know, we got to start laying the groundwork now for them to make a decision by the end of June. So any questions, thoughts?
Discussion?
George, how big are those trees? They're little, aren't they? In Chesapeake?
So they're the same ones. You saw the ones that we used at Brookside. They were larger than the spring ones we got earlier in the year. That were just the little stick ones. They were a little more respectable. They're still small trees. They're the ones you have to really put in the tubes for the first couple of years. But yeah, they're small trees. They're not like the ones we get from PHS.
They come in, they're like soil packets, you know, like square about this big. And when they're in the ground, the trees are about this big. And they provide the trees, the tubes, the stakes, the ties, the socks, the driver, the signs, the gloves, the hats, everything you need. They don't provide the mulch, but you don't really need, well, I guess you need a little mulch. Rob, we would definitely not participate in the spring like giveaway. George and I talked about that because the plants in the spring are smaller and then you have to water them all summer. He tried that once and never again.
Well, I'm just saying with the homeowners, if you give them a real small plant, they'll never get maintained. I mean, it's one thing being on township property where you can look at it, you know, take care of it and, you know, look after it. But when it goes on someone's property, if it's a small, like just a small whip or something like that, it'll never get maintained. It'll get
Educate well.
Well, one of the things, we're concerned about that as well. And one of the things George and I had talked about last fall when we were thinking of doing this is combining this with homeowner education or tree owner education. And PHS has an established tree tender training program, which have any of you taken that?
We all have.
Oh, you all have? Okay, great. So we were thinking of approaching PHS and telling them, asking them to host it here in the fall for Newtown residents, to really make it available, accessible. We had approached the tree tender coordinator a couple years ago, kind of during COVID, about this. And they were very enthusiastic, but at the time they were only doing it virtually. And we weren't really enthusiastic about that. We wanted to do it in person here so we could do the hands-on training, create a sense of camaraderie, get the people. And she said, oh, you can do a common viewing session, but we didn't want to do that. But yeah, you have to train people or tell them, you know, what to do about it. And one possibility even is to maybe link it, like you have to come to the tree tender training program to get your free tree, or, you know.
So, so when we took the tree tender, we did it online, and we did it the virtual. It was over several weeks. How long is it just 1 day commitment for it, or
No,
is it
it's actually 3 nights and 3 nights, I think.
okay, 3 nights?
At least when I did it years ago, and it was like 3 Tuesday nights for like 2 hours.
Okay,
I don't know how it was.
For us, it was 7 days, 7 Wednesdays for an hour.
yeah,
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, it's longer. That's a
Yeah.
lot of a commitment for 1 or 2 little trees.
right.
So we might have to think about modifying that. But
I'm just thinking. All right, so what do you think, Tom?
What do I think? I think it's a good idea. The sooner we start, the better.
Carol? Sure. Where are we gonna put them? Or is this a homeowner thing? I don't.
Well, it's a
I'm not quite
homeowner
sure.
thing. So I think for one, I think it's a really great idea. I think I mean, one of the things we need to do certainly is to educate. That's one of our primary responsibilities as our commission, is to help educate about the value of trees. Excuse me. And this would be a great way to do it. I'd like to see maybe one of you guys volunteer to maybe liaison with Cindy and the EAC on this effort to get this done. So would someone like to be the point of contact for this and maybe take lead on it, and then coordinate with the rest of us about what's going on? Because there's going to be putting together those packets, outreach to the houses of worship, the HOAs, and those things that are going to need to be done collectively. And so certainly I would think that if someone would like to volunteer to do that, that would be great. Carol, or maybe I was even thinking John Rice, while you're in town, you may want to do that. I don't know. I'm happy to take volunteers. Anybody?
Not my wheelhouse.
Not wheelhouse?
No.
No?
So you and I'll have to work together, dude.
All right,
Maybe, yeah, okay,
We can do it.
yeah.
We can do it.
okay.
So
This is
I
for the
have a
little
question
trees
for
or
like
the
maybe
big
Heather
trees?
or Andy or
Fall
George.
trees. This
Do you
is a
think
fall
that,
tree planting. So this is part of this that's supporting the Keystone 10 million tree effort.
Okay, but these are the little bitty trees.
Not little itty bitty, they're about 3 feet.
They're this big. They're not the ones from the spring.
Mm-mm. They're not the whips.
But they have to go in a tube.
Yes.
Okay, so that makes it harder,
That makes it easier.
well, it makes it easier, but it makes it a harder sell for the
It's less
HOAs.
appealing. Like people are gonna have to have a plastic tube in their front yard for 2 years.
Yeah, they're not gonna do that.
Well, you never know. I mean, that's part of the education part of it,
At
right?
least with the tube on it, they see it. Oh, I gotta
Okay.
remember to water that darn thing.
Yeah.
Well, and I,
Yes,
and I think people know that the deer are gonna eat it.
right,
You can say, it's
right.
gotta have that.
You gotta give it a fighting chance.
One of the details that I didn't share is, 2 or 3 years ago, I already put together a plan and I went through the township map, I went through Google Earth. And I looked at streets like Brookside, Ashley, whatever, along, Greer Park. And like Tyson Road and some of those streets, because Greer Park is problematic and that whole St. Albans area. And looked at those streets and the thought was to target maybe 4 or 5 streets. Where we think there is a contact person like Sheila O'Sullivan or Sonia Di Valero, who's a former EAC member, I think lives on Tyson Road. Who could be a tree captain for their street. And we recruit that person for Tyson Road or Brookside Road, and they would reach out to their neighbors and try to recruit like a group of neighbors in a row. So just a few designated streets that are in key stormwater areas, key watersheds in the MS4, because we wanted to count for that. And I guess we could just open it up to anybody in the township also who wants it and do like a random tree giveaway.
Right.
But to limit our effort, I'm not talking about every street in town. Talk about a
So
couple.
one thing that Steve Neese had brought up was targeting and I can't remember the name of the street that Pico took down a lot of trees. Sawmill was another one of those where he expressed some interest that might be something that we could target as well.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, George. All right, so why don't we go ahead and officially, does someone want to make a motion to approve assisting the, I don't know, is it partnering with the EAC? Partnering with the EAC on the 10 million trees initiative and to do a fall planting targeting private landowners. I guess I just made the motion. Do I have a second?
Can you?
Oh my gosh, don't make me say it again.
Well, you talk too fast. Okay. Yes.
So we're gonna partner. So do I have the motion on the table is to approve partnering with the EAC on a fall tree planting effort to support the 10 million trees for Pennsylvania effort on private property in specific locations within the township. Got it. Oh, and Carol and John Rice are going to be the lead on it, the point of contacts.
Motion to partner with the EAC on a fall tree planting effort for the 10 million trees for PA program.
Do I have a
Focusing on private landowners.
yes? Right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Who did the motion? Was you?
I did,
Oh, you did, okay.
and then Tom seconded.
That part I got teach to me.
All right. All right, motion passes unanimously. All right. Thank you. We look forward to partnering with you, and I'll help, of course. I just have a lot on my plate and I don't want to spread myself too thin.
Thank you. One of the other things I'm supposed to do, I guess, as liaison from the EAC to the shade tree is kind of keep you in the loop with some of the things we're doing. And I think I copied you on this, Trish, but just wanted to let you know back regarding Stoney Knoll. In addition to the 3 comment letters that we already wrote. And by the way, I was so impressed with your comment letter. I thought that was
thank
great.
you.
It came to my attention that when the DCCD or other folks, and I don't totally understand this from the DEP or whoever, review site plans, they rarely go out and actually look at the location, which I was surprised to learn. And I think that for Stoney Knoll, going there can be very informative. And I've been there 5 times since February. And every time I've been there, I have not gone on the property, but I've stood at the edge and looked. There is flowing water going through the wetlands. And to me, flowing water is a stream. It's not a wetland. And if you look at the map in the document that Stoney Knoll provided, it did not even show the tributary across the street. I always look at the National Wetlands Inventory map from the US Fish and Wildlife Service. That map showed an unnamed tributary starting right across the road. So it showed something closer than the map that the applicant had shown. Neither one of them, of course, showed the presence of flowing water on lot 18, or even the adjacent lot where there is already a house built that has a bridge and the driveway over the stream that exists, but is not on either map. So this is part of the reason that we were pressing for wetlands delineation, because we're hoping that it would show that there is flowing water. And in my reading of the code, you know, Andy pointed out that our code calls for 50-foot buffer on wetlands. But as I read it, I could be wrong, but for a stream, especially a high quality cold water fishery stream designated by the DEP, the protection is 150 feet. And it says on the applicant's map, and the stream that shows on the Fish and Wildlife map right across the road is an HQ CWF stream. And I think that if that comes through, and if it shows that that stream, you know, is there, which it is, and if the wetlands delineation shows that there is a stream on lot 18, my way of thinking, and I'm not an expert, that would be like, okay, then you have a 150-foot buffer. So anyhow, that is all to say that I provided a copy of that map, photographs, dated photographs to Michelle Ferry at DCCD, saying that, you know, here's some information, might be helpful as you consider Stoney Knoll. She acknowledged receiving it and said she passed it along to the appropriate people at DEP, who will have it for their reference whenever they make their consideration.
Do they have, did the state say that they had a complete application yet?
I don't think so. I
All
think
right, that's what.
yeah.
So I mean, they should, and I'm appreciative that they're willing to take the comments from us, you know, which is great.
Yeah,
I mean, us, the collective township, us, I guess. But that's great. And maybe that's something we need to think about doing more, maybe.
Well, and I asked her that in my thank you email.
Yeah.
I said, thank you for doing this. And I said, please let me know, you know, if this is an acceptable process, what
Right.
format, you know, because she said she'd reach back to me if they had any questions or they needed the information at a different format. So
Yeah.
I thought if it's not appropriate, they can ignore it. They can tell me they don't want it.
Right.
But at least I provided it.
Great. Thank you so much for doing that, Cindy.
Mhm.
And so just, I mean, I know that there's a lot of, you know, we're all still trying to figure out what our roles are and what lane to stay in. But I mean, I've gone through, I've read through the ordinance several times. And I'm just struck by what the purpose of, the finding statement in the shade tree ordinance is. You need some water? You okay?
Yeah, water would be good.
There's a water fountain if you wanna,
Oh, yeah.
I think, yeah. We can take a pause.
Gotta get used to that Pennsylvania pollen.
My gosh, yeah. All right. So one of the things that, I just want to remind everybody to is that in the statement of findings, it's like one of the, and in the purpose of the ordinance is we're protecting trees in part to address the effects of stormwater runoff. So even though we're protecting the trees, that's our main mission, but the reason why we're expected to protect these trees is to help ameliorate some of these effects to the creeks, particularly like it talks about Darby Creek, Kern Creek, and other streams, and in the Delaware Water Basin. And then it specifically says in our purpose too, it's that the provisions of the chapter are enacted for the purpose of promoting the utilization of trees to mitigate stormwater runoff. And then when we're looking at these development plans too, we're specifically, and this is in 158-10A5, it says we shall review the proposed application for compliance with the requirement of the township's tree replacement formula and all other applicable requirements of this chapter. The commission shall also consider the impact, if any, on all trees with a DBH of 6 inches or greater, and shall make the recommendation for the preservation of existing trees and for the species, location, and size of new plantings. So we're the way that I read the ordinance as it's currently written is that we have a duty according to this to review these plans and to first make recommendations to avoid impacts, because we're also supposed to saving trees from the indiscriminate destruction and or unnecessary removal. So, getting back to kind of where we're talking about, when we're reviewing this, these are all things that I think we need to keep in mind, because even though and I see what EAC's recommendations are and what our recommendations are very much nested in one another. They're looking at it from a much broader perspective, but I think we're totally within our lane with saying that we're recommending the preservation of certain trees on site if they're going to help to ameliorate some of these effects of stormwater and runoff, and to help minimize and improve the conditions of these streams so that we might be in compliance with the MS4. So anyway, that's just sort of how I kind of see it in the way that I'm reading it, and that's kind of where I was coming from with, getting back to what we were talking about before with our checklist. But anyway, you guys disagree with me, I'm totally happy to listen and discuss.
I'm waiting for the ordinance. Once it gets updated.
That's okay, go back to revise it again. We ready for 10.3?
Okay, so. Oh, there it is. Well, did we finish the checklist? Did we finish 10.1?
So we have to find John's Excel.
Right. So we're gonna find John's Excel, we're gonna add to this, and
Yeah,
then
'cause
maybe
this-
incorporate what I have
This-
and the ordinance update.
Yeah,
Okay,
this is a work in progress, I guess.
all right. So. Is it helpful? I mean, you said it was too long and you stopped reading it. So that's not helpful. But that's kind of why I just wanted to this is more like a checklist and that's why I just broke down the ordinance. And honestly, I don't see a lot of changes to 15810. Part 10, which is on the land development side of things. I think what we're talking about as far as the changes are more related to more on the private property end of things and the things like with the,
I mean, for land
Heritage
development,
trees.
my personal opinion about land development. We're not there to review everything. That's what Andy does, and that's what John does when it goes, the plans go in front of them. We're just to take the recommendation to them. We're not to totally review the plans and go in depth 100%. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I mean, that's why he has his job and John's, paid by the township. I don't know how much or a little bit or a little bit. But, for them to review the plans and then they make us the recommendation and then, just like the Stoney Knoll. For a couple months, we've been talking about it, that it has to go back to them. When they come back with something, that's it. That's all we should discuss. Until that further time, until they come back with another plan, because they're short trees, we have no discussion about it.
but they're not just short trees. There's more impacts potential impacts to the trees than were identified on that plan. Right. Right. And the fact that the ordinance says that they're supposed to provide certain information and that information was not provided. And so it's almost impossible for Andy or John or us to evaluate it with any kind of accuracy because the information wasn't provided in accordance with the ordinance. I mean, we're responsible for
Well, you can
upholding the
review
ordinance.
Every single plan, go every site visit,
All right.
look at every
I'll be
single
happy
tree
to
if
do
you'd like.
I'll be
I'm
happy.
not doing it.
I will. All right. Well, I'm fine. I will. I'm happy to take that role.
You can take hundreds of hours a year and go through every bit of the plan.
Well, if our
like.
mission
I'm not.
is to protect trees in the township, then I'll do it because that's what I volunteered to do.
Go on, yeah.
So. You guys have any thoughts one way or the other?
I'm with you.
Okay. Okay, all right. Sounds good. All right, so since I sort of opened up this can of worms, I'm happy to put together the checklist. And then would I get that over to Steve Bradley or who reviews it at the township? Should it go over to you, Andy, or who do I? Heather?
Or
Okay,
and I also think it's decent. Help facilitate. So whatever suggestions you have or additions you have. Run it.
okay, sounds good. All right. All right. Because we want to make sure that we're reviewing it under the guise under which Mr. Neese wants us to as well. So, because we don't want to be overreaching, but the way that I read the ordinance, there's a little bit more that we're responsible for than what's on this sheet. And he's happy to correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it's important for you all to have the plan as early as we can get. To with it,
Mhm.
and certainly rely on Mr. Hotchkiss review and whatever input that I can offer.
Yes.
And then have this discussion and see where you want to take it from there.
Okay,
Some projects are going to be obviously public.
right.
So.
Right.
And timing is problematic. We have such a 90-day window
Right,
closes very quickly.
sure does.
So it's really important to stay focused on that. And I know Heather does her very best to get you the information. that's
Right.
available. Right. Sometimes it's not as convenient as we all like.
Sure, sure.
So as long as you recognize that, and have those discussions, get plans,
Mhm.
reviews out to the applicant, possible.
Yep.
sooner the better.
Yeah, and I think Stoney Knoll, not to pick on them either, but I think it was a really good example project. Cause I certainly kind of like, it's a lot. It helped me do my review. Thank you so much for meeting with me and going over the plans to make sure I was reading them correctly and interpreting the ordinances correctly. And John too, for setting up the meeting with the applicant so we could clarify what was on the plan. Because that plan because they're supposed to identify all the trees. And what they did was that they only identified the trees that they were taking down, not the trees that were existing. And so it was without knowing what trees are on site, it looks like they're taking down all the trees. And they're not, they're leaving some. But we also don't know what other trees are adjacent to some of those areas, like where they're gonna put in these pipelines and some of the sediment basins.
Like when I did my lot subdivision in my house,
Mhm.
I came down and it was where it was. They sent it back because they wanted every single size tree.
Right.
Now, on my property, when I did it,
Mhm.
way back in the nineties, when I
Mhm.
subdivided my lot to put my house. Now, they sent it back because they had size, diameter and everything that was on the lot.
Right.
Now, do I agree with that? Yeah, it has to be done, but if they forget something on their thing and don't exclude it, I mean, I'm sure somebody goes out to the site and takes a look. Either our township engineer or somebody goes out and takes a look to see if the plans are correct. They're not just sitting in the office saying the plans are correct. But that's not our job to review the plans. That's our engineers. That's why they get paid by the township and the solicitor gets to look it over and everything like that. For us to hold things up that the township engineers look at, and that's their job to do. Our job is not to nitpick every single thing.
But as Andy pointed out, so
I mean, you can't tell me that everybody, like, when Lister or someone didn't do a site visit. You know what I mean? Like Lister and the one across the street, the monstrosity they're building over there now, where Ellis School was. I mean, you can't tell me every tree wasn't documented. And that was all.
Well, 104 says they have to do that.
Right,
Our
which I agree they
ordinance, and
should
our
do it,
ordinance
but it's
says
not
it
our
does.
job to
but
go and count every
wasn't-
tree on their property.
I'm not saying that, but at the same time, it's our responsibility to identify where they're deficient. And the plan didn't include that, and that's part of the plan review.
But I'm saying there's higher than us that are tasked to do that job. If you want to go out and look at every site plan and say they miss,
I think that's what she's saying. I think
And we
well, I'm
are
not saying
looking,
we can't look at the plan.
but we're looking at it through a very specific lens that everybody else in the township isn't necessarily looking through. They're looking at it from, they have a lot of hats and a lot of things that they're viewing. And I see it's our responsibility in order to inform Andy, to inform the planning commission of where we're seeing some problems or some deficiencies. If they make a decision to go one way or the other, we're just pointing it out. That I do see as our role. And if we can make recommendations to avoid, minimize, and then offset those impacts from those tree removals, then that's part of our responsibility of what we're supposed to do. Because again, I'm going to lean back on the statement of finding and the purpose of this commission. And that's what it says we're supposed to do. So that's how I'm doing it. That's, I mean, you can review it the way you'd like, but
Fine.
I'll put the time into it.
That's fine with you.
I will do it.
But I'm not spending, going and looking and checking every nitpicking tree, because there's people that are giving recommendations above us that I'm gonna take that recommendation. Because there's highly
Yeah, I
qualified
think
people above
every
us.
Plan, there's trees that is specific area of it. So I do think you have to rely on blocks. But I also think it's a good idea to lay eyes on. And all those plans technically certified by the surveyor or the civil engineer who prepares them. But I would say that nothing is 100%. By the review comments that we have with landscaping, tree replacement, or zoning, stormwater, it all has an internal effect on how you read the ordinance, how you do that plan. But it does take that dialogue back and make it such as the best form.
Why?
And that's a fairly simple project.
And I think it was oversight in my eyes by looking at their plan. It seemed like they didn't even know.
Right.
Because it's all outlet.
Uh-oh. Who's that?
Somebody bringing us dinner?
I have no idea.
And there's folks, there's very well-defined things. Based upon their review of the ordinance. We're actually working for the applicant. Like, things do get missed, and that's why it takes.
Okay,
Thank you, Cindy.
thanks, Cindy. All right. Okay. So do we
Time's up.
beat that dead horse? All right. Okay. All right. Fall tree planting, we talked about. 10.3 farmer's market. We have dates. That what?
No, the only thing that I did get,
I forget her name. I'll think of it. The woman who coordinates the farmer's market sent around a sign up genius today,
Oh, she did. Okay.
asking people to choose dates. And I know Janet Cravanis already chose June 16th for Birdtown. And EAC was gonna take June 3rd. But I'm not quite sure like how many tables are allocated and like how many township groups they're counting on like each week. So if you didn't get that email, I'll send it to you, but it just came through this afternoon.
I'll double check
Yeah.
and see, 'cause I don't remember seeing it, but. But we can also confirm on Monday for the chairs and vice chairs, yeah. So I guess just ahead of that, are you guys okay with picking a date? Do you have a preference? I think I'll see what's available and I'll try to pick the day that isn't like August when it's super hot and sticky.
They were Fridays, right?
Yeah. And I know, Carol, John and I did one last year. And so we need to come up with some, we were very scant on material, so we need to plan to maybe have some handouts or something, and it'd be another educational opportunity there for, hey, this is our shade tree ordinance, hey, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, you and I are supposed to be working on that.
I
We
know.
haven't gotten there yet. We have to
Yeah.
get the banner.
And a banner, yes, we
We
do.
need to get a banner. We used to
Yes.
have our-
Right. Yeah, well, maybe we can, maybe in the, for next year's budget, maybe we can ask to have for a banner. Is that possible? I think. Okay. All right. So just to close the loop on this, I'll figure out what those, I'll look at the lady that's coordinating it, find her emails, look at the dates that are available, and I'll try to find a date that in a month that it isn't super hot. Okay. All right. 10-4, ask the arborist event. So I think, can't remember, was it you, Cindy, that sent this email to me about another township that was hosting an event and was like, ask the arborist, and I thought that sounded pretty good. I forwarded it to John. Okay, all right. When do they usually do it? Do they do it during the?
You haven't got that far.
Okay,
In conjunction with. In conjunction with what?
just gonna have
Oh.
it. So it's like part of their shade tree? Oh, that's cool. Oh, I like that idea. Okay. All right. How about? I like that idea. So how about if I'll volunteer, work with John to set that up? Or do you want to do it?
Go ahead.
Oh, that's it. Okay. All right. So do you guys think that that's a good idea?
I don't think it's excellent.
Excellent idea. Okay.
I'm gonna stick you on the panel. I like that idea. All right, all right,
Landscape.
okay. All right, so old business. Tree inventory, that's you guys.
We're trying tonight. Tim keeps talking about Stoney Knoll.
You guys need to set a different time to do it instead of just our meetings, because
Well,
we're not gonna have time to do
everybody
that.
canceled and we're supposed to do that tonight and
Okay, well, we can get on to it. All right, we'll work on that. We already talked about, we talked about Arbor Day. Do we have any commission comments? No, nothing. Items for next agenda?
Something.
have to set up a meeting.
Oh, yes,
Yes, okay.
yes, the meeting with the solicitor. All right. I'll work on that.
My ideas and your ideas.
Right. Yeah, so
We have to do it.
I'll work with you, Andy, about trying to get a meeting set up with the solicitor. And what I'm gonna do too is I'm gonna go through the ordinance again. Take the notes. I think we submitted them like 2 years ago, and I think we've learned a lot since those. So I think I'm gonna refresh those.
I don't know that, I mean, typically, I've always.
Okay.
I see him out, but I don't want to bother him.
All right,
I'll pester him.
I'll work,
Oh, I
I'll put that on my to-do list.
Can I ask a question about the
Sure.
inventory? What software program are you using? Okay. I was talking to a colleague today who handles her town's free inventory in Vermont. And she said that they just got a new device, a GIS device that will send the information to their township public works department and be an overlay in their, what, can you? Okay, I wasn't sure, because she said that when they're looking for places to plant trees, so often there's wires or pipes or something underground. And that after having a standalone tree inventory software, they decided that it would be better to be an overlay in the township's public works software. So it sounds like that's already what you're doing,
We can also have.
but it has that capability. Great. I wasn't sure what you were doing.
What other,
Land development,
so we're gonna have probably the,
Arbor Day review.
yeah, okay, Arbor Day review, I like that. Right,
Oh, with, for, back to Arbor Day thing, I came up with I took a picture from last year's Arbor Day celebration and put some words with it. And I gave it to Heather, she turned it over and got it approved, and it was printed on the Newtown Township official page. And then I got a hold of Leonard Altieri, who was apparently in a head-on crash sometime this past weekend.
I talked to him today. He won't be here tomorrow, or he won't be at the event, because he's actually.
But anyhow, I asked him if he could put it on, because he does a lot of stuff on the Newtown Township community page. So he actually took the same thing that I had made and reposted it onto 2 Newtown community pages. So it goes out to more, so it would go out to more people.
Thank
So.
you. Thank you for doing that. Okay.
Yeah, there should be one kind of this. Should be coming up soon.
Okay. All right. And then, so let's have everybody kind of report out. Maybe report out on the fall tree planting.
Okay, yeah.
And then I'll have the, I'll commit to having like a draft or notes on the,
And the farmer's market.
no, on the, ordinance. For the meeting with the solicitor.
Oh, ordinance was first thing on the list.
Well, but I also have but I will coordinate with, I will try to nail us down and commit a date for us to do the farmer's market. Sorry. Okay. Any more public comment? Thanks, Cindy. All right then. Okay, then, I call meeting adjourned. 6:15.
All right. We do some inventory.